My parents took me aside before their anniversary party and told me not to tell any of their friends that I'm their son because it's complicated and we don't want to explain your situation right now. I just froze in shock, then walked away and never returned. Now 3 years later they're hurt and confused why I won't answer their calls and keep telling other family members I'm being unreasonable and cruel. My parents looked me dead in the eye and asked me to pretend I wasn't their son. At their own anniversary party. That moment shattered everything, and it set me on a path I couldn't possibly turn back from. I was 29, standing in their meticulously decorated kitchen, the quiet hum of expensive appliances filling the tense air. My mom's voice was too soft, my dad's too absent. I remember the exact temperature in that room, the way the pendant lamp reflected off the granite. It felt like a stage, and I was about to be cut from the play. Growing up, most people would have called me a quiet kid. Not shy, just careful. I listened more than I talked, observed more than I participated. That's probably why I noticed all the cracks before the house started falling apart. My parents, Sarah and Robert, lived for appearances. If something went wrong, they didn't fix it, they covered it up. They'd paint over the damage, rearrange the furniture, smile for the neighbors, and pray no one asked too many questions. I spent most of my life pretending I didn't see the peeling paint. We weren't a Hallmark family, but I thought we were at least normal. My dad worked in corporate real estate, always immaculate, phone practically stitched to his ear. My mom treated her social calendar like a full-time job, fundraisers, brunches, charity events where everyone wore the same shade of navy. They were obsessed with legacy, building a life others admired. The problem was, their definition of admirable didn't leave much room for those who didn't fit their mold. I was a late bloomer. Struggled in school, skipped college for a couple years, just floating, trying to figure out what I was even good at. Eventually, I found it, custom woodworking. Cabinets, furniture, decorative pieces. There was something grounding about it, something honest. You couldn't fake a dovetail joint, it either held or it didn't. I liked that. By 28, I was running my own shop with a steady client list. I wasn't rich, but I was proud. My parents weren't. They never said it outright, but I saw it. My mom would describe my work to her friends like a quirky hobby. Ethan's doing his little woodworking thing. It keeps him busy, she'd say, waving it off like I was building birdhouses in a shed. My dad just offered half-hearted "that's nice" comments. I stopped trying to impress them. I figured it was just part of getting older, parents stop understanding you. Happens to everyone, right? Then came their 35th anniversary party. Black tie, catered, live music. My mom sent a formal, engraved invitation, the kind you'd get for a wedding, even though we spoke regularly. I laughed when I opened it, seeing an RSVP card like I was just another guest. Still, I filled it out, checked attending, and mailed it back. I didn't think much of it. I'd play along. Put on a suit, smile, shake hands. Be the beautiful son for one night. I even spent 20 hours carving a wood portrait of them from a wedding photo, planning to surprise them with it. The party was Saturday. On Thursday, my mom called. She wanted to go over a few minor details. I assumed scheduling or seating. So I agreed to stop by after work. That's when things started to unravel. I got there around 6. My dad was in his office. My mom led me to the kitchen, then glanced toward the hallway, lowered her voice, and said, "We just wanted to talk about something delicate." She said we, but it was just her talking for a while. My dad eventually joined us, leaning against the fridge like he wanted no part of it but knew he had to back her up. My mom smoothed her dress, looked me dead in the eye, and said, "Ethan, we were thinking it might be best if at the party, you didn't tell anyone that you're our son." I actually blinked. "What?" She gave a tight smile. "Just for the evening. It's complicated, and we really don't want to have to explain your situation right now." My situation, that word hit me hardest. Like I was a problem, a scheduling conflict, something unsightly to be edited out. I looked at my dad, waiting for him to jump in, to say she was exaggerating. He just sighed. It's just easier, Ethan. A lot of our friends from Denver are coming. They have certain expectations. Expectations? I repeated, my voice thinner than I meant it to be. What does that even mean? My mom touched my arm, offering comfort that felt more like a bribe. It's just one night. Just say you're a family friend, or one of the vendors. No one will question it. I laughed. Not because it was funny, but because I didn't know what else to do. You want me to lie about being your son so your friends don't have to know what? That I didn't go to Stanford? That I build furniture for a living? They didn't answer. My dad looked away. My mom's mouth twitched like she was about to cry, like she was the victim. In that moment, something in me just shut off. I didn't yell. I didn't throw the carving. I just stood up, walked to the door, and said, "You don't have to worry about me being at your party." My mom called after me, her voice wobbling. "Ethan, don't be dramatic." But I was already gone. I got in my truck, drove home, and put the carving in the back of my closet, where it's been ever since. They tried calling a couple times. Left voicemails, equal parts pleading and guilt-tripping. I didn't answer. Didn't go to Christmas, or Easter, or my dad's birthday. Eventually, the calls stopped, but the messages didn't. They just moved through other people. My aunt, my cousin, even my childhood neighbor. "You're being cruel," my aunt told me over coffee. "You've cut them off for no reason." For no reason, I didn't correct her. I just smiled, nodded, and said I had a lot of work. But lately, they'd started reaching out again. 3 years. 3 full years of silence. And now, suddenly, they wanted to clear the air. They didn't understand why I was still harboring resentment. What they didn't realize is I wasn't angry anymore. Not in the way they thought. I was planning something. Quiet, precise, just like everything else I build. For a while after the party, I just let their calls go to voicemail. I'd stare at the screen, watching Sarah's cell or Robert's cell light up like ghosts I hadn't buried properly, my thumb hovering, frozen. Sometimes I'd listen. Most were short, "Ethan, call us back." Or "Ethan, this has gone on long enough." The worst were the ones where my mom cried. She always cried strategically. Never at funerals, never during real family fights, but voicemail? That was her stage. The first time I heard her say, "I just don't understand why you're being so cold," I nearly threw my phone. Not because of what she said, but how convincingly hurt she sounded. It was an impressive performance. If I hadn't been in that kitchen that night, I might have believed her myself. But I was there. I remembered the temperature, the pendant light reflecting off the granite. I remembered how they couldn't even say the words "my son" without choking on them, like it was dirty, inconvenient. And I remembered what came after. At first, I thought they'd leave me alone. That maybe deep down they understood they'd crossed a line. But that was naive. My parents didn't apologize. They reframed. They rewrote the script and handed it out to the rest of the cast like nothing had happened. The rewriting started small. Texts from my aunt, "Heard you couldn't make it to the party. Your mom was so sad you had to cancel last minute." I didn't reply. Then came the guilt-laced updates, "Your dad was really hoping to see you at Easter brunch. He kept checking the door." As if I was the one ghosting them without explanation. It escalated. About 6 weeks later, I stopped by my favorite cafe. Just wanted a quiet coffee. But Alex, the barista, someone I'd chatted with a dozen times, gave me this wide-eyed look. "Hey, I met your mom the other day." I paused, mid-reach for my wallet. "Really?" Yeah. She came in with friends. I mentioned you made our custom shelves and she kind of. Alex hesitated. Well, she laughed. Said something like, "Oh, Ethan always was good with tools. He just never quite figured out how to turn it into a real job." I froze. I felt the flush rise up my neck, slow and hot. Alex looked uncomfortable. I just thought it was weird. I assumed she'd be, I don't know, proud? I managed a laugh. Yeah, I said. You'd think. I walked out and didn't taste my coffee for hours. That night, I sat in my shop, sanding the same piece of mahogany until my knuckles ached. They were embarrassed by me. Fine, I could live with that. But to mock me, to diminish what I'd built in front of strangers in my own community? That was something else. I told myself I'd cut them off completely. Blocked their numbers, unfollowed them, deleted our last family photo. I even boxed up old family albums, tossing them into storage. Out of sight, out of mind. But of course, they didn't stop. They just changed tactics. It started with my sister, Chloe. We'd never been particularly close. She was the golden child, straight A's, for league, married at 25 to some investment banker, Mr. Sterling. She lived in a penthouse, posted professional family portraits like it was a competitive sport, hosted gender reveal parties with full catering. The last time we talked one-on-one, she'd asked if I'd considered upskilling into something more scalable. She called me out of the blue. I didn't recognize the number. "Ethan," she said, as if we'd been mid-conversation. "Can we talk?" I almost hung up. "What do you want?" "Mom's been crying," she said immediately. "She doesn't understand why you're freezing her out. She asked me to pretend I wasn't her son, Chloe." I snapped. "At their anniversary party. Do you get how insane that is?" A pause. "She didn't mean it like that." I laughed, bitter. "How did she mean it?" "She just didn't want to answer questions. You know how their friends can be. They don't understand people who take unconventional paths." "That's not my problem," I said. "You've always been sensitive." My jaw clenched. Asterisk right. "I'm the problem," asterisk she sighed, like she was talking to a stubborn child. "You're punishing them for what? Not bragging about your side hustle?" "It's not a side hustle," I said tightly. "It's a business. A successful one. I employ people. I pay taxes. I have repeat clients. You build things, Ethan," she interrupted. "That's great, really. But they come from a different generation. You can't expect them to understand everything." And there it was. The dismissal, the condescension. Like my life was a cute detour from the real world. Like I was the eccentric uncle who shows up to Thanksgiving with weird gifts no one listens to. I ended the call without saying goodbye. After that, I avoided every family gathering. If someone had a baby, I sent a card. Graduated, mailed a gift. But I didn't show up. Not because I was bitter, but because I couldn't stomach sitting across from people who saw me as a punchline. But somehow, my silence only made them louder. They started telling people I was depressed, going through a phase, struggling to find direction. My mom even told a mutual friend I'd been laid off. It was like they couldn't conceive of a version of me that was okay without their approval. If I wasn't playing the beautiful son, I must be floundering. But I wasn't. My business was thriving. I'd hired a second full-time employee, took on out-of-state commissions. A design blog featured one of my pieces in a top 10 craftsman to watch article. I wasn't just surviving, I was building. But none of that mattered to them, because it wasn't their version of success. Then came the final straw. A letter. Not a call, an actual letter on thick cardstock, hand-addressed in my mom's cursive. I almost didn't open it. I wish I hadn't. Inside was an invitation to my sister's vow renewal. She and Mr. Sterling were having a massive, expensive redo for their 10-year anniversary. Destination, full weekend itinerary, black tie optional. And at the bottom, in delicate gold script, a line that made my stomach drop: please respect the couple's wishes for a child-free, vendor-only event. Family members attending in a working capacity should check in with staff on arrival. Working capacity, I read it 3 times. No mistake. It was deliberate. I wasn't invited as a brother. I was staff. I flipped the card over. Tucked inside was a small note: Ethan, Chloe would love it if you'd contribute a few decorative pieces for the reception. Something rustic, elegant, your style. She says it would mean a lot. Let us know what you'd need. No apology, no acknowledgement. Just an assumption that I'd be so flattered to be included, even in a lesser role, that I'd jump at the opportunity. That's when something in me changed. Before, I was hurt, disappointed, maybe embarrassed. But now? Now I was done. And for the first time in years, I felt calm. I had no intention of building anything for that wedding. But I was going to give them something. Something they couldn't ignore, something they'd never see coming. But to pull it off, I'd have to play the long game. The note about the vow renewal sat on my workbench for days, under a layer of sawdust, warped from a coffee ring. Every time I looked at it, I felt this strange mix of disbelief and clarity, like I was finally seeing something that had always been there. It's funny what happens when the last thread snaps. For so long, I'd been walking a tightrope, trying to be the bigger person, trying to prove myself without being too loud about it, trying to find a version of myself my parents could accept. Not love, just accept. But the moment I read that invitation, I realized something brutal. I could win a design award, open 10 stores, make $1 million from a single piece of art, and they would still introduce me as the one who works with his hands. Because they needed me to be less. They needed a contrast to make themselves look shinier. So, I let the thread go. I canceled everything for a week. Not publicly, not dramatically. I just told my clients I needed a short break, locked the shop door, and shut off my phone. I went off the grid in my own tiny world. And I broke down. The kind of breakdown that doesn't look dramatic to anyone outside, but feels like an earthquake inside. I stopped sleeping, ate garbage, got stuck in these loops of memories. Me as a kid, showing my mom a wonky birdhouse, and her saying, well, maybe you'll be better at numbers. Me trying to hug my dad after winning an art competition, and him giving me a stiff pat on the shoulder like I was a stranger who'd spilled something on his shirt. So many little cuts. I'd ignored them for years, convinced myself they didn't add up to anything serious, but now I was bleeding all at once. One night, I found myself sitting in my truck in the dark outside the shop. Didn't want to go home. Didn't want to go anywhere. I gripped the steering wheel, thinking maybe I'd just drive until the tank ran out. But I didn't. I got out, walked back inside, locked the door, and sat on the shop floor for what felt like hours. No music, no phone, just me, the smell of wood shavings, and my own breathing. I wish I could say there was some lightning bolt moment. But it wasn't like that. It was slower, softer, more like a tide rising around your ankles before you even notice. It started with one piece of wood, a large slab of black walnut I'd been saving. I ran my hand over the grain and felt this flicker in my chest, like a spark under ash. I didn't know what I was going to make, but I knew I needed to make something. Not for a client, not for Instagram, just for me. I worked through the night. No plan, no sketches, just movement. I carved, sanded, shaved, burned, polished. I let the piece become what it wanted to be. Something abstract, something raw. By sunrise, I had a sculpture that looked like nothing I'd ever made. It wasn't symmetrical, wasn't practical, but it meant something. It felt like me. I stared at it and realized I wasn't broken. I'd just been trying to fit into the wrong frame. That was the beginning. The next few weeks were quiet, but something inside me had shifted. I started waking earlier, drinking real breakfast. I reopened the shop, told my employees I'd be taking a backseat on client work. I needed space to make something different. They understood. I went back to basics, studied joints, techniques. It wasn't about perfection, it was about rediscovery. I made a rule: every day, I had to make one thing that would never be sold. A spoon, a box, a carved panel, something that existed just to exist. It was like therapy. I didn't tell anyone about this phase. Too personal. But every time I finished something, I felt like I was putting a broken piece of myself back into place. And slowly, the noise from my family began to fade. Sure, I still heard about them. My cousin tagged me in a family group photo at my niece's birthday party, though I hadn't been invited. My mom posted a long, dramatic message about estrangement and praying for healing, clearly about me. My aunt left a voicemail: "Just so you know, your father had to explain to everyone why you weren't at the renewal, and it was humiliating." I didn't respond. For the first time, I wasn't craving their approval. I was mourning it. There's a difference. Once I let go of the hope that they'd ever see me for who I really was, something amazing happened. I started seeing myself more clearly. I started getting bolder with my designs. Riskier. One day, I posted a picture of a jagged live-edge coffee table that looked more like a sculpture, and it went viral. A week later, a gallery in Denver called, asking if I'd exhibit some of my experimental pieces. I said yes. Then came the interview. A podcast for young artists asked me about my journey, how I built a business without formal training, my biggest obstacles. I thought about saying no, but then I realized I wanted to say it out loud. I told my story. Not the cleaned-up version, the real one. I talked about growing up where creative meant directionless, where love was conditional on success defined by someone else's blueprint. I talked about how hard it was to undo those voices, to stop measuring yourself against people who never really saw you. The episode got thousands of downloads. I started getting messages from other artists, other black sheep, people who felt invisible. They told me my story made them feel seen. That meant more than any award. I started feeling something I hadn't felt in years. Peace. I wasn't healed completely. Still moments. Walking past a father and son at the hardware store, a familiar song from a family vacation. But I wasn't drowning anymore. I'd found land. And that's when the email came. From my sister's event planner. Bright, cheery, bullet points and exclamation marks. She wanted to follow up on delivery expectations for the custom pieces I'd agreed to provide for the vow renewal. I stared at the screen, stunned. They'd gone ahead and told people I was contributing, probably to look generous, probably to make themselves feel less like the villains. The email included photos, notes about the color scheme, even a timeline for installation. "We've set aside a lovely little table for you near the service entrance. You'll have a clear view of the decorative art you helped create." I didn't reply right away. I closed the laptop, took a walk. That night, I sat in my apartment, sipping tea, looking at my walls, the shelves I built, the lamp I designed, pieces that told my story better than words ever could. And I smiled. Because now I knew exactly what to do. And I had just the right piece. But first, I needed to pay someone a visit. And I needed to bring a box. Not the kind you'd expect, but the kind you don't forget. I didn't rush it. That was the first part of the plan: don't rush. For once, I wasn't reacting to them. I was creating something. And I knew better than anyone that anything worth building takes time. Revenge, like craftsmanship, is all in the precision. After that chirpy, fake-friendly, utterly oblivious email from the event planner, I knew they had no clue what was coming. They genuinely thought I'd either show up and smile like a trained dog, or quietly sulk and stay away, letting them control the narrative again. They didn't know the version of me that had come out of those long, silent weeks in the workshop. They didn't know what I'd learned, and they had no idea what I was capable of. I started by calling an old client, Olivia, who ran a boutique event space. She'd hired me for installations and we'd stayed friendly. She was sharp, detail-oriented, and had her ear to the ground for everything in the city's upscale event circuit. If anyone knew about Chloe's vow renewal, it'd be her. She answered on the second ring. "Ethan. Haven't heard from you in forever. You okay?" "Better than ever," I said, and meant it. "Actually, I was hoping to pick your brain." "You got a minute?" "Sure, what's up?" "Chloe Sterling's event. Her 10-year vow renewal. You know anything about it?" Olivia groaned. "Oh, that circus?" "Yeah, unfortunately. She booked the Anders estate and demanded custom everything. Took my assistant 3 hours just to walk her through flooring options she didn't even use." "Ha. Just curious," I said, pacing my shop slowly. "You wouldn't happen to have a layout of the venue, would you?" "Ethan," she said, her tone shifting. "You're not thinking about taking on that nightmare, are you?" "Not officially," I said with a grin. "But let's just say I'm preparing something. I'd love to see how the place is set up, especially the back entrance, service quarters, storage areas." Olivia laughed. The kind of laugh that says, "I don't know what you're planning, but I want to see it happen, give me 10 minutes. I'll email over the blueprints and the vendor list." "Olivia," I said before she hung up. "Thank you." "Don't thank me yet," she replied. "Just make sure whatever you're planning leaves a mark." I had my map. Next, a team. I didn't want to involve anyone close to my family, too risky for leaks. Instead, I reached out to people who knew me, who'd been in the trenches during the early days of the shop. I called Caleb, my first hire, an ex-con turned artisan with the best eye for detail I'd ever seen. Then Maya, a freelance photographer and prop designer I'd collaborated with. She was chaotic in the best way, creative, resourceful, and excellent at staging things to provoke reaction. I didn't tell them everything at first. I invited them to the shop one Friday evening and laid a large cloth over the main bench. Beneath it were 3 sketches and a series of labeled mock-ups, a sculpture, a pedestal, and a hidden compartment with a sliding mechanism, all built from scratch. "This," I said, lifting the cloth, "is going to the vow renewal." Maya raised an eyebrow. "Your sister's event?" Caleb crossed his arms. "I thought you weren't going." "I'm not," I said. "But this is." I watched their eyes scan the designs. Confusion slowly morphed into realization. "Is that what I think it is?" Maya asked, pointing to the carved center. I nodded. "You want to display that at the event?" Caleb said, half impressed, half horrified. "No," I said. "I want them to ask for it." That was the key. This couldn't look like sabotage. Couldn't be sabotage. Technically, it had to be something they welcomed, something they bragged about, something they posed with, completely unaware of the trap beneath their feet. It had to be a gift. And not just any gift, a masterpiece. I got to work. The sculpture took nearly 3 weeks, built in secret after hours, under a tarp even inside the shop. It was black walnut and white ash, curved into a modern, asymmetrical shape that looked abstract from afar. But up close, you could see the truth. Carved into the inner edge were names, dates, phrases, all from our family's history. Some innocent, Ethan's first desk, 1998. Others more pointed, he's not really our son's son. He builds things, he doesn't do things. You're being overly emotional. I didn't quote anyone directly, but I didn't need to. Every word was etched with surgical precision. You had to look for them. Get close. The deeper you stared, the more uncomfortable it got. But on the surface, it looked stunning, elegant, refined, museum quality. I built a minimalist pedestal to go with it. Black oak with a simple plaque, Legacy. Commissioned for the Sterling family, 2025. I even sealed it in a crate with a branded tag listing my shop as the creator, along with a fake backstory about how Chloe had personally requested the piece months in advance, and how it represented heritage, growth, and the transformation of natural material into art. I knew exactly who to send it to, the event planner. I composed a short, confident email, saying I was following up on the family's request and delivering a featured centerpiece. No charge, of course. A gesture of celebration. I attached polished photos, buzzwords, descriptions that made it sound expensive. Sent it off with a note that it would arrive the night before and required minimal setup. She replied in 20 minutes, "It's exquisite. I'll reserve a prime spot near the welcome table." Just like that, it was in. I spent the next 2 weeks finalizing the mechanism. The real trick wasn't the sculpture, it was what was inside the pedestal. A small drawer, perfectly hidden, locked with a magnetic switch. Inside, a hardbound photo album, custom leather cover, elegant. On every page, a different snapshot of what my family didn't want seen. Pictures of my dad shaking hands with people he later smeared. Screenshots of social media comments my mom left on parenting forums under fake names, complaining about her underachiever son. Photos of me at public art installations they never attended but told people they supported. Even the invoice where they quietly refunded a donation I made in their name because it didn't align with their professional image. I included a printed copy of that party invitation, the one where I was asked to act like I wasn't their son. I framed it like art. And on the final page, a handwritten note, *, "This is who I am. This is who you are. You taught me to value image over truth. But I've chosen something different. I've chosen honesty. Let's see how it feels for you, *. I sealed the drawer, reset the magnet, and sent the sculpture on its way. The event was in 5 days. I didn't go. I had no intention of showing my face. That would have made it messy. Personal. No, I wanted this to unfold slowly, like watching a stain spread on silk. But I did send someone. Maya. She went in with a camera rig hidden in a brooch, saying she was helping one of the floral vendors. Got a pass, strolled in like she belonged. She even wore one of the family colors, silver blue. She called me 30 minutes into the reception. "They love it," she whispered. "The sculpture's front and center. Your mom just gave a speech about how it symbolizes strength and family legacy." I nearly choked. "She's telling people you made it for them months ago. Said it's a representation of how far we've come as a family." Caleb, sitting next to me in the shop, burst out laughing. I shook my head, stunned. The irony was so thick you could spread it with a chisel. "And the drawer?" I asked. "Still sealed," she said. "But there's a little kid crawling around near the base. He's been knocking on it like it's hollow. I give it 20 minutes. I hung up and waited. And somewhere deep inside me, I felt it click. Not revenge, not yet, but alignment. The pieces were in place. And the real show? It hadn't even started yet. The first text I got was from my aunt. About 3 hours after the reception was scheduled to start. Just one line, "What did you do?" No context, no follow-up. Just those 4 words. I didn't answer. A few minutes later, a call from an unknown number. I let it go to voicemail. 30 seconds later, another one, then another. Then silence. For about an hour. I knew that silence. It wasn't confusion. It was coordination. They were regrouping. Maya uploaded the footage that night. Nothing public, of course, just a private Dropbox folder labeled Inheritance. It had everything I needed. The moment the sculpture was wheeled in. The moment the photographer asked them to pose with it. My mother's fake smile, my father's carefully measured nod. Chloe doing a breathy explanation to her guests about how it represented the core values of our family: strength, elegance, tradition. And then the moment. A kid, maybe 6 or 7, bored and fidgety, noticed the side panel and started knocking on it. Lightly at first, then harder. Maya got the whole thing. You see the child tap one particular spot, again and again, then crouch down, fiddling with something. A guest crouches with him, an older man, curious. He runs his hand along the seam, looks up, calls someone over. A few moments later, one of the staff opens it. The magnetic switch slides loose. The drawer opens. That's when the video gets quiet. You can feel the air change. A woman leans over, picks up the album, opens it to the first page. Her smile slowly drains. Then she flips, and flips again. Her face tells the story. By the 5th page, she glances around, then hurries over to my sister. Chloe, radiant in a pale blue gown, takes the book with a polite, confused smile, still posing for photos, still floating on her cloud of self-importance. She reads the first page, and everything stops. Her expression collapses. Not dramatically, not instantly, just wilts. Slowly, like a dying flower. She flips another page, then another. By page 6, she's walking briskly off camera, book clutched to her chest like a bomb. You don't see where she goes, but the whispers begin. That's the thing about events like this. They're performances. And performances depend on control. Lighting, timing, mood. Control the stage, you control the story. But the moment the audience senses something real, something raw, everything unravels. Within minutes, you see guests murmur, turn to each other, point toward the sculpture. One woman takes a closer look and visibly flinches. A man leans down and starts tracing one of the carved phrases, his eyebrows raised. Then someone snaps a photo. A few more follow. Phones come out. People start reading aloud. The phrase, "He's not really our son's son," echoes faintly through the video. And then, like a wave, you see them realize, this wasn't a tribute. This was a confession. And they displayed it, framed it, bragged about it. I didn't need to be there. I could feel the room folding in on itself through the screen. Maya did one final pan across the reception hall before heading out. My mother is off to the side, near the catering station, talking rapidly to 2 elderly women with horrified expressions. My father stands stiffly near the sculpture, glaring at it like it betrayed him. Someone tries to cover the pedestal with a tablecloth, but it's too late. The photos are out. The story is already leaving the room. And Chloe? She's gone. I watched the footage twice. Then I deleted it. It had served its purpose. The fallout was fast and deliciously silent. That's what I'd hoped for. No screaming matches, no tear-stained apologies. Just consequences. The next day, my parents called me. I didn't answer. They tried from their landline, from burner numbers, from Chloe's number. Nothing. Then came the email. Subject line, "We need to talk." The body of the message was short: "Ethan, what you did last night was cruel and humiliating. You embarrassed this family in front of hundreds of people. Whatever point you were trying to make, you went too far. Please call us so we can discuss next steps. Your mother hasn't stopped crying. Dad." I stared at the screen for a while. Then I typed 2 words, "message received," and hit send. That was all. No explanations, no arguments, no emotional monologues. They didn't deserve my voice anymore. 2 days later, my mother posted a carefully crafted statement on her social media. Sometimes even those we love can act out in hurtful ways. Families are complicated. We ask for privacy and understanding during this time. She turned off comments, but screenshots made their way around. Some of her friends sent me messages. One said, "I never knew you went through all that. I'm so sorry." Another said, "The piece was hauntingly beautiful. I don't think I'll ever forget it." And that? That meant more than any forced apology ever could. Chloe never reached out, but I heard through the grapevine that she cancelled her honeymoon, that she spent the next week ghosting every friend who was at the event, that her husband, Mr. Sterling, was furious she hadn't vetted the piece more closely. Apparently, his firm took some hits, too. A few clients weren't thrilled to be associated with a family that publicly disowned their son and got caught lying about it. Couldn't have happened to nicer people. Meanwhile, my business exploded. I got 5 new commission requests within a week. Most from people who saw photos of the sculpture online and wanted something with similar emotional depth. A design magazine ran a feature titled "The Artist Who Exposed His Family with One Sculpture." I didn't ask for the title, but I didn't argue with it either. I was invited to do a TEDx talk, declined, got a grand offer, accepted. My waiting list grew by 6 months. But none of that was the real win. The real win came on a Tuesday afternoon, about 3 weeks after the event. I was in my shop, working on a new piece, something smooth and warm, shaped like a slow breath, when there was a knock at the door. Not the main entrance, the side one, the private one. I wiped my hands, opened the door, and there was my neighbor's kid, the one who always biked past my shop on the way to school. He was holding a school project, a lopsided jewelry box, barely held together with glue. He looked nervous. "Hey," he said. "My mom said you make stuff." "Like, good stuff?" "I do my best," I said, crouching down. He hesitated. "This fell apart. Do you think you could help me fix it? I want to give it to my grandma." I looked at the box. One hinge was crooked. The lid didn't sit flat. But the effort was there. The intention. I smiled. "Yeah," I said. "I think we can fix it." As I stood there, holding that small, broken box, a quiet truth settled in. Sometimes, the best thing you can ever build isn't for a client, but for yourself, the version no one, especially your family, ever thought you could be. It might mean breaking everything that came before, but sometimes, that's exactly what you need to do to finally build your own life. What would you have done in my shoes?